Hello, my crafty friend, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. I have been meaning to share these beautiful, whimsical, fun things with you for so long now, but I've been waiting for the right day to get into them, and today feels like the day. So these are creations by the beautiful and very, very talented and unfathomably generous May from Saudi Arabia. Um, she has blessed me with so many unbelievable happy mails over the last few years, and her style is just so eclectic and fabulous and over the top. I always love it. When a package of hers arrives, I think of it as Mayday in a good way. And yeah, you can see why. So, as tends to happen with crafty people who send happy mail, I feel like May just has an intuitive sense of knowing, things to include, maybe without knowing why she's including them. But in this particular happy mail, I got so excited. And just for the record, um, before I get into it, what I'm sharing here is like a fraction of what she sent. I wouldn't be able to share all of it because for one thing, it wouldn't fit on camera with the setup that I have. And for another thing, it would take hours and hours, which I'm so sorry, but I just don't have them. It's 3 in the afternoon and I'm filming this on Halloween. And we get lots of trick-or-treaters here, and I still want to go through the garage and find a few decorations like faux jack-o'-lanterns I can put candles in and put them on the steps so trick-or-treaters know that we're here. And I'm dressing as a mystic, so I'm wearing a dress that May actually sent me in the first ever Happy Mail. I know it's not a costume, it's a beautiful Arabian dress. And she told me that, I could cut it up and use the materials for junk journals, but I love it so much that I actually keep it hanging in my closet on display. So I just can't bring myself to cut into it. It's such a beautiful garment. But anyway, I wear this and I'm layering it with some scarves that Kat Stone had sent me, and I'm doing my makeup with heavy black eyeliner to kind of get like a mystical look. And I'll carry a deck of tarot cards with me to the door. So I'm basically dressing up as a mystic. Anyway, so yeah, I just don't have hours and hours to film today, but I had to share these two beautiful things. So anyway, years and years ago, back in 2011, I think it was, it might have been 2012, I'd have to check my passport. A good friend of mine who was actually born and raised in Slovakia invited me to come with her to her hometown to do tarot card readings for a bunch of her friends, and she acted as the translator. She knew me from Vancouver. I'd read her cards a few times. She always got a lot out of the experience, and she told some of her friends back home. And they all wanted to get readings. And so they all kind of pitched in and pooled their money and paid for me to go to Slovakia to spend 3 weeks. And it was such a cool experience. Basically, I did the readings for free, but it wasn't really for free. It was like for the trip. So my travel expenses were paid for. And I'm so glad I did those kinds of things back in my 20s when I could, because yeah, I had a lot of really cool experiences doing that. But anyway, we landed in Vienna, which I didn't know until that time is like half an hour's drive from Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, where we caught a train to the town of Poprad, where my friend was from. So we only had, I think, 4 hours in Vienna, And, you know, half an hour of that would be driving time to get from the airport to the train station. And so we spent 3 hours seeing as many sights as we could before getting to the train. And it was basically like we went to the one and only vegan restaurant that was on the route. I'm sure there are more now, but back in I think it must have been 2012, there weren't quite as many. But long story long, I guess I didn't need to give you all that background, but here we are. Long story long, we didn't have time to do any shopping. So it's like I've been to Vienna, but I didn't get a single souvenir while we were there. And over the years, I've kind of looked back and regretted it. Like, if I had known about junk journals at that time, if I had known about ephemera and the joy of collecting antique and vintage papers and this and that's, like, oh my goodness, all the time I spent in Europe, I would have been hitting every antique store and buying all the old music books and all the old letters I could find. But anyway, it's always kind of bothered me that I went there but I didn't get any souvenirs. And I should say, I have quite a few beautiful pieces of vintage Austrian papers from the beautiful and talented Angelica, and I'm working on a Happy Mail journal for her. Stay tuned to see that one. But this just touched my heart so much from May because it is very clearly like a tourist souvenir. And I'm sorry, there was some sticky stuff on it, so my cat's hair has gotten onto it. But yeah, she kind of grunged it up, like she painted it with the stuff that us junk journalers paint stuff with to make it older. And she made a little journal to go in it. And I just adore it. So this set, as May put it together, lives in my bookshelf, displayed in a way that I can see the word Vienna and remember back to that really cool trip. So yeah, May, this is like a beautiful example of May's art. She always embellishes things with faux gems and faux jewels and gold and just gorgeousness. And I love it. So yeah, this little journal, you know, last week and later in this video, I'm going to do a little bit of craft with me to make some of the most popular ephemera from the journal I shared last week. But, you know, a lot of people commented both on YouTube, but more on Instagram, that this journal reminded them of a clutch purse. And it's so funny because when I first opened this Happy Mail from May, this reminded me of a clutch purse. So yeah, she has kind of carried a blue feather theme throughout it. There's the blue feather she glued to the cover, and then just the most stunning sticker ever. And yeah, the pocket is this really pretty coaster, and she always puts such cool ephemera and numbers her journal. So this is her number 97, and the name of the journal is Days in Vienna. So when I send May, her birthday is in November, so I am busily completing my next journal gift for her because I like to get it to her in time for her birthday. I'm going to ask her in the letter, or I could just send her a message and ask, but I kind of like writing things by hand. I'll ask her, did she make any of this while she was in Vienna? Did she also spend some days in Vienna? Beautiful little faux ticket ephemera pieces. She's made one of these ladder pockets. I love the Aurora Borealis crystal in the hairpin. And there's a cute little owl brooch that May has sweetly written, "Me and you." So cute. Actually, at the time that I received this Happy Mail, I was designing my owl-themed printable kit and getting ready to complete my owl journal that I have in my Etsy shop. And I saw this and I thought, what a cool sign. Sometimes when we're working on something, we'll receive a gift from someone that just lets us know that we're on the right track. I love this piece of wheat that she's included. There's natural wheat that grows in the landscape around my home. And sometimes when I'm out for a walk in the fields, I'll pick up one of the long pieces. And it's not like I'm stealing it from a farmer's field. Like, it grows wild in the reverse mountains we have around here that are called coulees. But I like to pick the really long ones because my cats love to play with them. Like, drag it across the floor and they go wild. But anyway, some textile samples. She's done a beautiful floral paint print on this page. I've come to accept the fact, and I think I mentioned this in my last video too, I've come to accept the fact that I am not so much a journaler in junk journals. I've got a bunch of paper blanks journals that I use for actually writing in. But I think of myself more as just a collector of junk journals and of ephemera. Look at that beautiful vintage looking bride. She must have been in that pocket. So yeah, back in the day when I was first into this hobby of junk journal making, look at the little bunnies. So pretty. I used to sometimes feel the pressure or the stress that, you know, what am I going to do in this book? When am I going to sit down and write in it? And now I kind of feel like they don't exist necessarily to write in. So pretty, the girl in the mirror. They can be just objects of art for their own sake, made to look at, made to open up. Whoops, and I might someday write a little note here and save it for maybe my future self to read, or for a person in the future who might acquire this journal as an antique when it becomes one. That might be kind of a fun thing to do with our journals, right? Like, write some letters to the future for whoever might come to own them, the way, you know, the way we buy Victorian scrapbooks and things on eBay. Wouldn't it be cool if you found a Victorian scrapbook and the lady in the 1800s wrote, like, if you're reading this one day in the future? That would be kind of cool. Aren't these gorgeous? So one of the things Angelica from Austria told me when I asked her what is it that she loves most in a journal, she mentioned that she loves the ephemera from around the world. And I do too, so it's so cool to see pieces from the Beijing Opera. And she's cut them with pinking shears so they look like postage stamps. Oh, and there's stuff on the back too. I have gone through these before, but it's always kind of a fun surprise when I find something that I missed on my first flip through. But anyway, these are the kinds of little things that, like, her journal is almost finished. I'm working on so many gifts right now. I have a box, like a ready mailer box for Kimberly that I'm stuffing full. If you don't follow her yet on Instagram, please do. She's at Tugs at Your Heart. And she's making the most gorgeous gardening themed journal. Speaking of gorgeous, oh, I just love all these things. It's so wonderful to have a collection of these works of art, and I love how May printed this on coffee dyed paper, which is something I've just started doing too. When I first got into junk journal making, my printer pulled the paper from the bottom instead of top loading, and the wheels just wouldn't accept coffee dyed paper for some reason. But the printer I have now, which is a lower quality printer, but it does load from the top, so I can print on coffee dyed paper now, so yay. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, follow Kimberly and Angelica both. They post beautiful things. And May does too, by the way. I should mention, so for the longest time, she didn't have any social media. Maybe I'll ask her when I publish this if I can share her Instagram profile for those who might be curious to see it. I'll just make sure. I'll just make sure that she doesn't mind. Hold that thought. If you see in the video description, if she gives the approval for it, I'll post her Instagram name in the video comments. I love this. I love this. The cats with the phases of the moon. I love celestial things and I love cats. And having the two together is like the best of both. But yeah, I'm busy working on so many gifts. You know, I don't know if you can relate to this or if it's just me, but there are so many special people who have sent me beautiful things over the years for whom I've been setting aside piles of goodies with the intention of sending it to them. And then, you know, life just gets overwhelming, and then I'll lose track of it, and then I'll put them in a drawer, and then I'll forget, and then months later I'll remember it. So if you've sent me a happy mail and you've been waiting seemingly forever to get something back, and I'm thinking, you know, Kimberly, I think I told her I was going to mail it on Monday, but instead I bought the box on Monday, and I've been taking my sweet time to fill it. Angelica, of course, and oh God, my favorite fantasy artist in the whole wide world, Kat Stone. She has just blessed me with so many supplies and so many just out of this world prints and originals of her art, especially the paper dolls that are my absolute love. Yeah, just I would hate for anybody to think that I've forgotten about them or that I'm not, you know, working on something to send them, because I am. Anyway, look at this key. Look at this iridescent key. The old me would have seen this in May's Happy Mail journal and would have thought, oh, I have to do something with that. Where am I going to stick this sticker? But I've given myself permission to say, I'm just going to keep it right here. Like this book will remain as it is, as a work of art. I'll clip it under that beautiful hair clip. And, oh, there's two of them. Oh, they're slightly different. Beautiful. But I think it's kind of nice sometimes. We need to just give ourselves permission to be collectors. I love this. Night and day, sun and moon. And then that's what they'd look like in Arabic. So fun. Another like Arabic flashcard. Yeah, I just love these things. And then more of these ephemera pieces printed on coffee dyed paper. I love that, the lady at her sewing machine. I wonder if May did that, or if that was something, you know, us Happy Mail people. We share and share alike. Like, she sends me all kinds of coffee dyed paper, and I use it in my journals and share it with my other crafty friends. So that could be made by somebody else out there. Love this gold leafy stuff. But anyway, speaking of suns and moons and celestial motif things, just look at this tag booklet that she made for me out of bookmarks. And there's the moon, a star, and the sun. And it's so perfectly coordinated to the moon, the star, and the sun bracelet that she gave me for my birthday a couple of years ago. I wear this every single day, even if all I'm doing is going out to take the cat litter to the garbage and go for a walk. I wear it. I love it so much. And it's so cool to have a bookmark I love how she's done that, just with like a grommet and a beautiful tassel. So yeah, that is the first book, Days in Vienna. Absolutely love it. But yeah, from now on, like when I'm making journals for myself, junk journals, I'm not leaving any writing space at all. I'm just filling them up with my collections, my ephemera pieces and everything. If I want to leave a note to kind of record anything about it, I'll add that in, but written on the back of a postcard or an old envelope or one of the journal cards, instead of leaving blank pages. And it's so much fun to just think of them as collectible art books instead of, yeah, having kind of the obligation to use them as journals. And pardon me, I'm just going to sip my coffee here. Hopefully you have a nice drink of something as you're listening. But yeah, the big journal that was in this package, she has done layers and layers and layers of this beautiful iridescent lace. And I love how she's done the spine dangle. She's like strung it through this cool shaped bead, so it's like a double dangle. And we have a little golf girl. My Uncle Jim manages the pro shop in a golf course, and so I think of him whenever I see golf things. There's this braid that she's put the whole way through. It's so cool. And then an adorable little teddy bear. That reminds me of that work of art. I forget the name of the artist, but you know, that piece that's you see everywhere. Little pretty, my favorite colors, gold and turquoise together. Yeah, and then on the cover, she has just gone over the top with beautiful brooches. I love the heart. So I found such a cool brooch for the journal I'm sending her for her birthday. No spoilers. I will do a flip through share video before I send it to her, but she always puts such beautiful things on the books she sends me. I felt like I have to find just the right piece of bling for hers. Okay, so this one, whoops, even if I put the dangles out of the way, it doesn't quite want to lay perfectly flat, and I don't want to break it, so I'm just going to let it do what it's doing. But yeah, look at that pretty fabric that she's lined it with. At first I thought she painted this, but it's like a printed silk sort of a fabric. And then the pocket she made is this pretty folded over piece of just such a pretty, like a sea green sort of a lace piece. And in the pocket, she's put all kinds of cool ephemera. So there's this tag with these beautiful, like wooden buttons of kitties and flowers and butterflies and the little autumn tree, which is perfect for this time of year. And she's made that on a pretty piece of packaging. And then this one that she hand painted. I'm trying to figure out if these are letters. Like, is there a secret hidden message painted into this in these symbols? Or am I trying to interpret abstract art and somehow put a meaning to it? I would love to know. So the name of the journal is Papers Art, and she's included coloring, dyed papers, and other techniques. It's her journal number 98. So we've got 97 and 98. Some very pretty embossed handmade paper. Oh, and then this little card. It is so sweet. She's congratulating me on reaching, I won't read it because it's personal, but yeah, she wrote me a little card to congratulate me for reaching 2,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. May is just so thoughtful, so sweet, and you know, like she doesn't just send gifts, it's also the meanings behind the gifts. Like, oh, I could tear up at the beautiful, sweet things that she has said to me. So this little booklet is so cool because it actually completely comes apart. It's not stitched. And so these pieces could be used if I wanted to take them apart and use them, like the safety pin comes off, and then these fabric pieces could be, say, glued or sewed down as pockets, but I'm not going to take them apart and use them. I'm going to keep them as she made them in this book forever because I love it like this. But how cool is this? This is a Gauguin painting. Oh no, sorry, Henri Rousseau. It says right there. But one of my favorite paintings. I have a print of this. I love that moon and the jungle scene. I have a print of this exact painting that I took out of an art history textbook and put in my personal journal. Love that one too. So yeah, she filled this little booklet with just gorgeous art stamps. And that beautiful little bird, little falcon. So yeah, she just has a way of putting things together that feel so magical and so special. And her journals are always maximalist. It's always a more is more kind of a journal. So yeah, now we can see why she's called this one Art Papers, because every single page has something special to it. Like we've got handmade paper, coffee dyed paper, painted paper. Oh, and her coffee dyed paper, I wish you could smell this through the screen because it just smells incredible. But what a cool idea for a journal. She's done basically 3 journals in one. Like the strips on the top, I just love that. It's like unicorn colors. It's just so pretty. There's the top pages. The middle pages are more vibrantly colored. Oh, so cool. Look at that print. That would look so good in like a tropical themed journal. And then the bottom strips. Just so beautiful. You can see the different techniques she was referring to on the written page. So pretty. And then here she's done a page of washi tape strips. And it's pretty that it's on a page that has some maple leaves. Very cool. And then the back, she sent me some of this stuff. Isn't it cool? It's like a gilded tablecloth or placemat sort of a thing. And when I first received it from her, I thought maybe it's for coffee dyed paper. Like maybe that's how she gets those patterns. But it's neat to see how she's kind of just cut it to use as a pocket. Lets me know how I can use the other pieces that she sent. But yeah, this cool like folded bookmark piece with journal cards. And I think I will write little messages to the future on the blank pages. I think now that I've had that idea, it must be done. And some stained glass cats. So cool. Yeah, my favorite things, celestial things, magical things, and of course kitties. Oops, I caught that before it fell out, luckily. So yeah, these are my latest beautiful May journals, and I'm so glad that I finally took the time to share them in a video because now I can put them away on display on my bookshelf without feeling like, yeah, I need to get to it. I love that little teddy bear. Anyway, I'm going to prop that up. The backdrop here is one of her new coffee dyed papers. I just had to show it. She sent so many coffee dyed papers and I've already used a bunch of them. But anyway, I felt like today, not only doing a share of some of May's beautiful work, but also giving just a little quickie version of a tutorial on how I made, oops, going to take this off to show you first. It's the ring and the earring that go with last week's journal. Hopefully it'll sell. Business has been really slow. Like last month, I lost the whole month to the Canada Post strike, so I wasn't selling physical items. And ever since the tariffs have been imposed on Canadian goods, I feel like my shop just isn't getting as many views as it used to. But if you are American and you love my journals, just so you know, books are supported under the CUSMA Act, which means there is no tariff applying to books. So yeah, my journals can still ship, priced as they are, shipping fee as it's always been. You don't have to worry about any added tariff fee, if that's been a concern. Sorry, gonna sip my coffee again. I've had kind of a busy day, which is why I'm filming this later than I usually do. I got my home internet bill in my email inbox, and it's like double what it's always been before, and I realized that the sign-up rate that I started with at TELUS expired. So I was on the phone call on hold waiting to speak to a real person for almost an hour. And then a solicitor came to the door trying to sell us a home security system. And you know what it's like. If you make the mistake of answering the door, you get stuck in that conversation. He was pointing out all the neighbors who have had break-in attempts, and I think they do it on purpose to try to scare you into signing up for their product. But anyway, that's why I didn't finish my coffee. And I thought, you know what, why not? I've seen other creators take a moment to sip their drink while they film. I don't need to be so serious about my work. But anyway, I thought I would share how I make this little guy, specifically how I distress the paper to make it look actually genuinely old. So I went ahead, oh, and I'd also like to share how I make the lace sample page, but we'll do that second. Set these aside. So what I've done here is I've printed from last week's, my new printable kit, the French Antique Documents printable kit. I've printed that little strip booklet onto 4 different kinds of paper so you can see how it looks different. This is just regular printer paper. I printed a full-size version of this antique French document from the 1600s on the back. And it's actually pretty good that you don't see it through the page unless you like hold it up to the light. But yeah, that's how it looks on regular printer paper. This is how it looks printed on coffee dyed paper. And this is just coffee dyed cheap printer paper. This is my favorite. It's expensive, but I always stock this for my journals. This is printed on linen paper, and I buy not the pure white. Like you can see, this is the actual color of the paper. It's called ivory colored linen paper. The brand name is Strathmore, and that's what I used for the one that went into last week's journal. And see how you can see kind of like a cross-hatched canvas pattern to it. That's not part of the print, that's actually the paper that you can see through. And I just love it. I printed an 1813 document on the back just so that the back wouldn't be plain. Oh, and then I did one on handmade cotton rag paper. And I think this is cool because of all the papers, this is the one that's the most like the original document. It has that same exact texture. It feels soft to the touch, like it literally feels like an antique French document. And then I printed this on the back. The only downside is that this is not exactly 8.5 by 11 the way the others are. And so despite my best efforts, the thing on the back isn't perfectly aligned with the thing on the front. So anyway, I can just do some distress ink around the edges to make it work. And then because I love that cotton paper so much, I also printed out a page of the French stamps on this paper. And what's really fun, well, for me anyway, this might be like one of those, if you watch The Big Bang Theory, it might be like one of those Sheldon Cooper moments where somebody says like, here's a fun fact, and then he'll rattle off a fact about, I don't know, the growth season of pears or something, and people will say, there's nothing, that's not a fun fact, that's just whatever. But to me, to my paper-loving mind, I think this is a fun fact. These antique French documents we have from like the 16 and the 1700s, they used to have a tax imposed on them. It was called papier épousseté, which translates literally to meaning stamped paper. And any piece of paper that a legal authority, like a lawyer, a judge, a notary, had stamped with one of these official document stamps had a monetary value like currency. And so these kinds of papers, especially papers denoting properties, papers that are like a will, or like the, literally like the lease or the mortgage papers for a house. I know they didn't call it that back then, but you know, the deed, the property deeds. It wasn't just the property described in the deed that had a value. The actual piece of physical paper itself had a value, and that value increased the moment it was stamped like this. And there was actually, boy, and I wish I had written all of these details down, but you could Google it. I found this out through Googling it because I Googled antique French legal stamps because I was kind of curious to see if I could find specific history about any of the specific images that we see in the stamps. Like this one kind of looks like she's holding a discus disc or something and a flower, and then what I was looking for was the stamp that has this like two-headed statue on it. I'm not describing that super eloquently, but see how there's like this Grecian goddess figure and an eagle, and then on her table there's like these two male figures, back of the head to back of the head. I was trying to find out what this means, but instead of that, I came across an article, and there was actually a French Revolution, not the revolution, but prior to that, there was a mini revolt against the taxes applied to papier épousseté. So it's kind of neat. Like if you've got a collection of antique French papers and or you print some out and it feels just like the real thing, it's kind of fun to know. Like there's the papers themselves are not only historical documents, but there was interesting history around them. So anyway, I'm just gonna work and talk. So I've kind of wondered how these papers survived so many centuries, especially the ones from the 1600s and the 1700s. Like, why did people keep them for so long? Because their contents are long since expired or rendered irrelevant. And I feel like more modern ancestors of ours have kind of thrown things away. Like when my granddad passed away in 2016, my grandmom found certain papers in his safety deposit box, like passports, old passports, and his parents' marriage license, like all kinds of, in my opinion, interesting papers, like documents that would be kind of noteworthy. But she threw them away because they're redundant now. Like the people whose marriage certificate this is are no longer living. What would they need it for? And it's just interesting to me. Like, some of us, I think, are more sentimental, might be a nice way of putting it. Hoarders might be a not so nice way of putting it. And then others are, as my mom calls it, a chucker. Some are chuckers and some are savers. So I've wondered, what is it specifically about people in France that made them savers, not chuckers? And I feel like maybe because of the tax on these papier-épousset and the inherent value that the paper, the written page itself had once it had been stamped, might have kind of made people feel like it's not a disposable thing. Whereas now, especially in our digital age, when, there's no value to a bank statement or the paper of a legal will, it's just words on a page, and the actual value is in the items described by those words. I feel like we consider these things to be more disposable. Our era's version of these. And so I think that kind of makes these historic items even more fascinating to hold. And I watch a lot of junk journal artists on YouTube who create with their originals. And I do too. Like, I make sure to use original antique papers and things in every single journal I make. Not one journal is just printables, quote unquote. And I say just, like, printables I think have value too, because the hand of the artist is in them. Like, I'm literally cutting out a printable as I talk about this, but the originals are so much more exciting, like historically valuable. And back when I was first into it, like if I bought an antique French document like the one I've scanned for this printable, I would force myself to cut it or rip it into pieces and sew it into a book. And then one day I started to think, I've bought Victorian scrapbooks off eBay, and I've removed the pages from them and soaked off the ephemera. Soaking it releases it from the paste, like the old glue, so it can be reused. And on the backs of some of those pieces of Victorian ephemera, I have found notes written by the lady who made the book. Like a couple of the pieces had been Valentine's cards, and so there were little Valentine's messages on the back. And I thought, like, how sad that she just glued this written side down into her book. And if it hadn't been soaked to reveal it, that would have been lost forever. And then I've thought, one day, 100 years from now, if an ephemera collector gets their hands on one of these journals I've made, how will they think of me? Like, will they think, like, dear God, this woman had access to a document from the 1600s, and instead of preserving it, she cut it into pieces and stuck it in this book. And in that era, it was trendy to do this. And so thanks to them, we don't have any antique French documents from that era that aren't cut and glued and added to junk journals. And it's kind of changed my perspective, where now I feel like when I do add these things to journals, I include them whole so that the entire thing will still be intact. And that's how I'm going to do it from now on. Like, when it's scanned and printed like this, I'm fine to just cut it up and fold it into a book and sew it in. But the whole pages, I've kind of, yeah, put myself in the shoes of a future collector, and kind of decided, you know what, I think it's good to save some of these things. And I could be way off. Maybe there will be future junk journal creators who come across this kind of stuff, and they'll also cut it and rip it and ink it and glue it and sew it. But I think there's something to be said about preserving some things too, like using the prints and saving the originals. Some of them. Some of them. Like, I think those that are already not whole or not intact. Sorry, I just realized that my camera has been off this whole time. Thank God, not turned off, just off-centered. Hang on, coffee time. But yeah. So here's where it gets tricky. I wasn't going to do this on film, but then I thought, if I only do the easy parts on camera and save all the hard parts for off camera, it's not an authentic portrayal of what it is to make these things. So here we are. In case you've bought this kit. By the way, and this obviously, this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. If you don't have my printable kit, but you like this idea of having a little old booklet with a window to reveal a bookworm behind it, you could do this with any antique French printables. It's just that this one, it's a scanned document that actually was eaten away by a bookworm, and I'm following with my X-Acto knife exactly in the eating path that the bookworm left behind. So it's a little bit finicky, but worth it, I think. And the nice thing is you don't have to be too precise about your cuts, because the tattered look is just fine. And I'm also going to go through at the end with my scissors and rough up all of these edges, and then with my distress ink and distress sponge to make it look authentically old. See, I cut off, but that's okay. I'm just gonna get it back as close to the original as possible. I've had people comment on my videos in the past that I must be really patient to do all the fussy cutting that I do. And I think I hated it when I was first making journals. The fussy cutting was such a dreaded thing. I dreaded it even more than poking holes and sewing in signatures, which is, I think, the other hard part of making a journal. But I've kind of learned that you don't have to be too much of a perfectionist for your journal to look cool. Like, it doesn't need to be exact, as long as it's pretty close. And then this one, you can see it looks like this would be where you cut it, but you can actually see this is the edge of that paper. And what gives it the fun layered look is that the top hole is the biggest and the bottom hole is the smallest. So you see all the layers leading down. But yeah, how do you feel about your journals? If you've listened to me babble this whole time, like do you use them to write in, or are you more of just a collector? Okay, so yeah, we've got all of the pages for our strip booklet cut out now. And you can kind of see, like, the one that I made already looks a bit different. For one thing, I printed it smaller than this one. This one's just slightly bigger. But yeah, this is because I did some tearing, some scissors, distressing, and some inking. So I'll share that. Pardon me, I just need to get my ink. So yeah, when I started making junk journals, the Distress Oxide was one of the things that I kind of resented the price of. Like, they're not cheap. I think this ink pad was like $35. But I've had this exact pad since 2020. And it's now since like, yeah, early 2020. It's now October of 2025. And I'm still using it. I've been using it at least once or twice a week on papers since getting it. And it's still good. So I feel like it might be expensive for an ink pad up front. But if you bulk at the price the way I did, it's kind of good to know it's not the kind of thing you're going to have to replace every few months. It's not like your glue that you're going to need more all the time. So yeah, this is my favorite little trick to make the papers look older than they are. I've got a really nice pair of craft scissors that Cat Stone gave to me that are very sharp, beautiful little scissors. I use them for cutting out paper dolls and other finicky things, but I can't really do this with them. I'd be afraid of hurting cutting up my little fingers. So I'm using my dull, lesser scissors for this. So yeah, just beware. If you have really sharp scissors, do this very carefully. But yeah, you're basically just putting the blade onto the edge of the paper and then kind of like shaving it away. And I do this before I ink, otherwise you'll shave off the ink and have a white line. But I love to do this. Anytime I do a reproduction of an antique paper for a journal. And then I kind of do a little bit of sawing too to kind of get some flaps in the paper that can be rolled up and folded over. Because that is something that you see in your antique papers. So yeah, there's one down, 4 to go. And I'm looking at the time thinking maybe I will not do the lace sampler card. Maybe I'll do another craft with me video at some point to share how I make those, because I'm very vividly aware of the time today because I want to make sure I've got some fun makeup on my face and some kind of Halloween-y decor on my step before trick-or-treaters get here. I lived in an apartment for a lot of my adult life, and in those years I didn't get trick-or-treaters, and I missed it. I love having kids come to the door in their costumes with, you know, their pillowcases or their bags or their buckets for candy. I loved trick-or-treating when I was a kid. So this year I went to the dollar store for it. Last year I spent like $20 per bag on bags of Twizzlers Nibs fun size that I handed out to trick-or-treaters. But this year I found bags of Skittles fun size at the dollar store. Not a health food by any means, but they are accidentally vegan. And I only, like, I've been vegan since 1999, so I would not purchase or hand out anything with animal products in it. But I still like to give good stuff. So I found, yeah, fun-sized Skittles. And also, maybe I'll show you when I finish this craft project for those who are interested. In the Halloween aisle at the dollar store, I found packages of little, like, mini notebooks, like little tiny miniature, like they're like this size, maybe a little bigger, spiral bound lined note papers with Halloween images on them. So each kid who comes to my door is going to get a fun-sized Skittles and a little Halloween notebook. And that way, yeah, there's one thing that you eat it and it's gone, and then another thing that lasts and it's kind of fun. When I was a kid, I used to love going through my Halloween bag once I got home and looking for the non-candy things. Like, some people used to give out like toothbrushes and I don't know, there was just something about that. It felt more like getting a gift, because with candy, like, once you eat it, it's gone and the fun is over. But with a pencil or a toothbrush or a notebook or something that's non-candy, I'm so sorry. I just looked at my screen and realized I was out of frame. Yeah, with like a little thing. Yeah, it lasts longer and it feels kind of exciting. But I feel like at the same time there are probably kids who would be disappointed if all they got was a pencil or a ghost-shaped eraser or a toothbrush or something. So I thought I'll do the best of both worlds. They can have one candy item and one little other thing. And then I Googled, like, what are good gifts to give trick-or-treaters other than candy? And it's interesting. There are a lot of good ideas out there. Bouncy balls, black and orange bouncy balls was on the list. Pencils, erasers, I've already said that. I thought, like, it could be fun to find, like, Halloween-y looking yo-yos to put in trick-or-treater bags. Oh yeah, fun-sized little things of Play-Doh was another item on the list. So I might go back to the dollar store after Halloween to see what else they might have and get an early start on next year. Maybe put together little baggies that have a few fun things. I've also thought it could be kind of fun to have 2 piles by the door and ask kids, do you have a dog or a cat at home? And the kids who have cats, maybe give them like a little cat toy, and the kids who have dogs, give them a dog toy along with their candy, because pets are so special. Animals deserve a little excitement too. All right, we're almost done here. And then I'm going to ink the edges of these, then I'm going to sew up the little booklet, and then I'm going to call it a day. So yeah, the reason I printed out so many of these on so many different types of paper is that this is probably my favorite of all the ephemera pieces I've come up with by scanning old stuff. one of my two favorites. My other favorite is my Salesman Sample booklet of Victorian calling cards. But that takes a lot longer to make than this. Like this is like a 20-minute project, start to finish. The Salesman Sample booklet, like there's an envelope to glue. There's a lot of fussy cutting. All the different Victorian calling cards. Plus the little scrap pieces that go in the centers of the calling cards. It's quite finicky. Whereas this, I know I can add it to every type of journal and happy mail. I wrote a friend of mine. I received an actual physical letter in the mail from a good friend of mine who lives in the Bronx. We've never met in person, but we've been friends for, boy, I think since like 2016. And yeah, it's always kind of nice to get a physical letter and to have something like this to include in the physical letter. So if you have a printer, and like you can see, you can use just regular printer paper. It doesn't have to be this fancy textured linen paper with an ivory tone. It can be plain white printer paper. But it's kind of neat, like just one sheet of paper and a little bit of ink makes a whole little booklet. And so yeah, I'm sticking one of these into that letter to her. I think she'll get a kick out of it. And like, you don't need to go this extra mile with distressing the page with scissors and then inking it to make it look old, but I think it does make a difference. And a tip, so if you don't have distress ink, I thought of this just the other day. Back before I had this tool, I used makeup sponges dipped in the distress ink and then used on the sides of the papers. So that would work. And I've been thinking of like, what can people use that's more eco-friendly than the chemicals that might be in this kind of ink? I have to try it, so, you know, if you're experimental, here's my idea, and I'll try this too when I run out of ink. But I've been thinking, when I coffee dye paper, there's always coffee residue. I'm going to show you the thing. So yeah, this is like a Rubbermaid drawer that I coffee dye paper in. This is all the old coffee that's kind of grunged up the drawer. I've been thinking, I bet a wet sponge dipped on this and then rubbed on the side of a page would give the same look as distress ink. At a fraction of the cost and better for the environment. So I will try that. But anyway, yeah, here we go. Here are the leaves. Like, can you believe that just, what, 15 or 20 minutes ago, this was just a regular piece of paper, and now it looks properly old. And I do need to step away one last time to get my needle and thread. And this is what'll make it look old again, instead of just doing a staple. So a lot of the old French documents I look at are bound together with string, and I love that. It makes them look so much older. Here we go. I'm trying to find which one goes on top. So biggest to smallest. There we go. Oops, there was a hair in there. Oh, and then these little bits can get kind of rolled to kind of mimic the look of the original. Rolled and folded. There we go. That gives it that really three-dimensional pop. So for the one that went into this book, I actually sewed the little bookworm right into it, For this one, I'm going to leave the two little bookworms loose, and I'm going to create like a little pocket page or something in the journal to hold them that this will go in front of. And I'm not going to do that part on camera because I haven't even made the journal for it yet, but I promise I will share it when I do so you can see. I'm just going to do this last little step. So hang on. Here's my, probably the grungiest piece of crafting material I have is the box that my bookbinding stuff came in. It's, you can tell I've used it as a backdrop and I've painted things and see all the little holes in it. That's because it's the cardboard I use when I need to bind something together with string. So I'm just going to go like this and like that. And I'm going to put a little bit of ink around those holes so that they don't look too new. And then let's see, if I already have some string that's cut, I'll use that. Here we go, and I do, instead of cutting into my roll. And then I'm just going to thread this through. The nice thing about waxed cotton is that you don't even really need a needle. You can just kind of poke it through the hole and it's stiff enough to allow you to do that. I'll do it like this. I should say you can just poke it through the hole and it's stiff enough to allow you to do that if you're not on camera. Of course, if you're on camera, Murphy's Law stipulates that everything easy becomes hard, and if you say something's easy, you will be proven a liar. And if you say something's hard, it'll be instantaneous. So I should start, when I do these craft with me's, I should start saying this is really hard and I'm sure it'll take me 3 or 4 tries, and that way things will go smoothly. All right. So there we go. Cut it, and then to make it look old, I kind of try to fray the edges of the string once it's through the holes, of course. And then what I did with the first little booklet, I actually put a little bit of ink over the waxed cotton, and that also kind of mimics the effect of aging. So there we have it. For those who like to actually write in their junk journals, there's plenty of blank space on these papers for writing little notes and such. But for those like me who are more just paper collectors or ephemera collectors, there's also the copied French words. They're fun to look at and fun to read. And then our little bookworms. So we've got this little happy fellow and my favorite. Definitely more cartoony than you'd expect something from the 17th century to be, but we'll forgive that because he's just so adorable. So there it is, how to make a really quick, fun little bookworm eaten piece of a document from the 1700s, how to make it actually look as old as the original. And in a future video, I might share how I make the tall, skinny envelope. It's pretty easy. Just print it, fold it around the book, glue it down, and then again, ink the edges. And then the next craft with me video that I do, I'll share how to make this piece that I think I had more comments on this than any of the other pieces in that video. And that's like the little lace sampler with a surprise pocket. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure when that'll be. It might be next week or it might be a little while later, depending on how much I get done towards the next journal I'll share in a flip through. But I would like to share that just because it's so easy and yet so beautiful to have something like that in a book. And of course it was inspired by Angie Happy Mail Shares. So yeah, I'll just tie this back up and then I will get to my Halloween preparations. Oh right, and I did promise, as if you're just hanging on my every word with anticipation. I did say that I would show you the cute little notebooks I found to give trick-or-treaters. So I'll show you those and then I will go get to my Halloween prep. But anyway, don't you just love this? I love this journal. I really hope it sells. I always hope they'll all sell because how can you not as a shop owner? But if it doesn't, it'll be a nice piece in my collection. All right, so here it is, my dollar store loot. This gorgeous bag that I can take to the door, oops, as I pass out candies. Fun-size Skittles. And I would have loved these. Okay, so they're bigger than I remembered. But how cool are these little mini Halloween notebooks? So yeah, one candy thing and one keepable thing for each kid. I think that'll be good for their haul. And yeah, I will leave it at that for today. So happy Halloween if it's something that you celebrate. Happy crafting if it's not. So much love to you, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.